So Zbrush day one. So this program, like I said before, is mostly or is primarily for sculpting. This program does not do animation. It does not do rigging. It's not really for rendering, but it's there for sculpting characters, creatures, environments, props, whatever. It can sculpt pretty much anything you can think of. It's a sweet program. You also can do some texture work in it as well. I do a lot of character texturing in here. When we open this up, you have this box that opens up here. This is called the light box. This box here allows you to go to your recent files. So like recent, you also have predetermined projects that you can open up as well. You have predetermined tools, ZTool files that you can open up. Remember I was telling you before, like projects and ZTools are two different things. These are two different types of files. We have a bunch of other stuff in here as well, like brushes, textures, alphas. So you can access a lot of stuff from this menu. You also have, I think honestly this is way more useful, quick save. So ZBrush by default will quick save. I think like every 20 minutes or so. So if ZBrush crashes, and it will, you can go to quick save and open up your last quick save file. Now this is not going to update whatever file you were saving. So say if I save a version of this guy in ZBrush, and I saved it like 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago. Well, let's say like an hour ago. And it's been quick saving the whole time. It's not updating that ZBrush file that I saved manually. It's actually making multiple other files for you to select from. So just keep that in mind. You still have to save your file manually every once in a while. But the quick save file, that's just a place where it's saving like a bunch of files, and it's a nice easy place to go back and find something if you need to, but I would not rely on it as a place to store your projects. That's not the purpose of it. All right, if you want to get rid of Lightbox, hit that, get rid of Lightbox. So let's talk about, let's go over here. We have a bunch of different tool menus, so it can get a little bit confusing, okay? We have options over here where it says tool. You can open and close it. And you can go to load tool, save as. Anytime you save your file, you go to save as. Control S is not the same thing as this. It's confusing. Control S will save it as a project file, and that's saving everything that's open, multiple documents. Not necessarily what we want. Save as, that's going to save whatever the open document is. So whatever that open tool is. Again, think about it like Photoshop. Photoshop, you can have a whole bunch of documents open. Let's see, project file, Control S will save everything that's open, all the stuff that you have open at that point in time. Whereas a ZTool file, save as, will save just whatever you're working on right then and there. Okay? Confused? Me too. Load tool, you can go to, whatever your tools are and open them up from there. It'll open up ZTL files. If you want to import something like an OBJ file, which is an object file, a STL file, which is a different type of mesh files for 3D printing, you can open up a lot of stuff using import. Export, you can export things as OBJ files, which is what we would read in Maya, STL files, which is what I would read in a 3D printing program. So yeah, this right here is your open documents. So right now I have several pre-made documents that are already open. I have a cylinder, I have a star, I have the simple brush, and then I have a polymesh 3D star. So if I go to the star here, click and draw on the canvas, you'll see that the star appears magically on the canvas. If I click and drag again, you'll see I'm drawing more stars. Okay, and if I try to do anything here, you see I'm just drawing more stars. So what I need to do is really you just need to draw it once. That's all you need to do. I'm going to go to edit, click edit, and you'll see whatever star I drew last is going to be the one that I can rotate. Everything else is kind of like just a 2D image. You can't really mess with it. If you have a whole bunch of stuff on your screen, hit Control N as in Nancy, and it'll take it away. So you have this by itself. Okay. Over here on the right-hand side, you have move, click and drag, you can move it. You can zoom in and out. You can rotate. Okay, so I'm just clicking and dragging with my pen. Additionally, you can click and drag with the mouse on the canvas and rotate. You can hold down Alt and left mouse drag around. And then you can, with your mouse held down, you can release Alt and zoom and zoom in and zoom out. So you can hotkey and do the same thing without ever touching the little keys over here. You guys with me so far? Yeah, no, maybe. Okay. So let's say I want to start sculpting. Trying to sculpt. Nothing's really happening. Okay. What I want to do is I need to turn this into a make polymesh 3D. Okay. I clicked on the cylinder because for whatever reason the star wasn't giving me the message I was looking for. But with this, it's going to tell you. It's going to literally tell you to enable sculpting. Please convert this 3D primitive to a polymesh 3D by pressing make polymesh 3D in the tool panel. Oh gosh, a message came up. Can't do what I want to do. What do I do? Professor! What do I do? Let's work through this. What is it telling us? What do I have to do?
We click the button that says make polymesh 3D in the tool palette, which literally just says make polymesh 2D.
5 points to vertical.
Yes! So what do you need to know?
Okay, that's it. So as soon as I click make polymesh 3D, did you notice like a whole bunch more stuff popped up down here? That means we're ready to rumble. Yes. All right, so now I can go ahead and start sculpting. If I click and drag, you'll see I can sculpt. Isn't it pretty? All right, let's do a sphere. I want to do a sphere. So you know what, cylinders are great. Honestly, my favorite thing to start off with in this is a sphere. So I'm going to go over, click on this guy. You'll see all the primitives. You'll see that right there. I need to make this into a polymesh 2D. And boom. Now you'll notice, going back to the whole idea of like, we have multiple documents open. What's happening right here?
there's multiple meshes open.
Yeah. So if I ever want to go back and like work more on this on the cylinder, I can go back to the cylinder. If I want to go back to the sphere, I can go back to the sphere. So I can swap between these guys. So these are literally just different documents. That's all they are. So now I can go ahead and start sculpting. Woo! All right. Make a sphere, draw some shit on it, and go. Yeah.
Well, let's say for instance, what if we want to like concave rather than like lifting it out?
Whoa. Just draw some shit on the sphere real quick. Just make something. So we're crawling, we're adding before we reject.
I don't have.
What are you gonna try? But you bring up a good question. I can add, and I can also take away. So that kind of brings this menu up here into question. So I already talked about edit. That puts me in edit mode. Draw. That means I'm in draw mode, meaning I can sculpt. If I click move, that brings up this little gizmo 3D doohickey. So I can literally pick up the object and move it. It's not, I'm moving the camera around, it's actually physically moving the object. It's kind of hard to think about because there's no like grid to see it against, to see it moving, but you are actually moving the object. You can also rotate it as well. Scale, I can scale it. And I can also rotate it. Now, really, the Gizmo 3D does all three of these in the same thing. The reason why there's three of these is because the Gizmo 3D is actually not really new, but it's probably about 5-6 years old at this point. No. It's probably like, I don't know. It's like, it's been a while. So I really don't know why they still have it. But it used to be ZBrush. You can only move and rotate and scale things using this incredibly confusing barbell system. It's really weird. You can move it around. You could trim. You could kind of do some weird skewing with it. I don't know. It's weird. I personally like the Gizmo 3D a whole lot better. Plus, it's really close. It's a lot closer to like what you already do in Maya. So it's similar to that. Yeah.
Why won't work on my tablet with the ZBrush?
Like, does it say it won't work?
Well, like I am touching it and it's not doing anything. It does it with the mouse, but it's like not sensing my pen.
Do you want to try another pen?
I mean, I know this one goes with my tablet. It works on anything else, but it's not working on the ZBrush.
What kind of tablet do you have?
It's a Helen.
Yeah, Huons don't. It's different pen technology. So for Wacom, you have to use Wacom pens. It's true.
Oh. Well, this came with this came with my tablet.
I understand.
So
Are you using one of our tablets or are you using your
I'm
tablet?
using my tablet.
Oh, well then I don't know. I don't know how your tablet works. I'm sorry. I thought you were using one of our tablets.
No, I'm using my tablet, and I don't know why, but it won't.
Did you try turning it off and turning it back on again?
I'll try that.
I'm not saying that sarcastically. I'm actually like suggesting it because sometimes that works. Do those pins charge?
No, it's not a battery thing.
Okay. I don't know. Are you plugging that into your laptop or are you plugging that into the computer, our computer?
Plugged into my laptop.
Okay. Yeah, that's I don't know.
Okay.
That's getting outside of my range of sport.
I'll keep trying to figure it out then.
Do you have a question?
Yes.
So you need to draw something on the canvas first. and then you can click edit.
I have a sphere and
Okay.
silver.
Draw another sphere and then click edit.
Oh, why?
I don't know. It's ZBrush has some weird quirks, and I've never figured out why they have things the way they do. Yeah, hit Control N. Make sure you do Polymesh 3D. Okay, so moving on. I'm gonna go back to draw. So you have this little doohickey right here. Has anyone ever seen or heard of Sculptris as a program? You've heard of Sculptris? Is anyone else? Okay, so Sculptris is a little program that was eaten up by ZBrush about 5 years ago. This is what's left of Sculptris. It's a plugin now for ZBrush. Basically, their whole claim to fame was they had active tessellation of a geometry, so that when you sculpted something in like a low resolution geometry, it would actively like up-res whatever you were sculpting. It was kind of cool. But you have Sculptris mode, essentially, you could work on. So you can get like really nice pen marks. You see how like this all looks kind of janky and low res, but like this looks way better. But I haven't like subdivided the thing. Well, this is the polyfaces. So if we zoom in, see how like subdivides the hell out of that area. It's kind of cool. It's got some nice uses. Okay, moving on. We have Mrgb and Rgb. Like I said, you could do some texture painting on ZBrush. I really like the texture painting. I wish it was better, but you can do some cool texture painting on here. So Mrgb is material, red, green, blue, so you could actually add like a material to the object. And then you can also do RGB, which is just straight paint. So it's kind of neat. So like say, for example, if I wanted to paint this thing black, I could add black to it. And then I could do like green and add green. So you can add color to your objects. Just FYI, I don't care if you add color to your objects in this class. This is not a texturing class. This is sculpting. I'd much rather you guys spend your time sculpting and making things look better that way. But if you're so inclined, you can paint your stuff. Have fun. All right, turn that off. I'm gonna turn on Z-add. So that Z-add means you can add. The opposite of Z-add is what can go up can also go, yeah. And that's what you were asking me about, on how to cut into something. Okay. Right here is Z intensity. That is basically the forcefulness of the brush. You see right there. So I can up the Z intensity to 100, and you'll see it really kind of like cuts in. Usually, I like to go in layers, and I like to go soft because I don't like to get too jerky with the sculpting, because I feel like it just overdoes it. So usually I'm going to be repetitive strokes to try to get the form that I'm looking for. I usually go pretty soft. All right, draw size. That is going to be my brush size. So the bigger the draw size, the bigger the brush. Smaller the draw size, smaller the brush. Then you have this thing called focal shift. That, see the little, our mouse has the inner circle and the outer circle. That is the focal shift. Think of this as the inner circle is 100% whatever the Z intensity is supposed to be. And the outer circle is 0%. So think of it as a gradient, okay? Goes from 100% to 0%. So if I do the focal shift low, as in like -100, that means my focal shift is going to be cut. And there's not going to be any fall off. There's no softness to it. If I do focal shift of 0, you'll see there's more of a fall off there. It's not cutting as deep or as hard as it was before with the -100. And then if I go to 100, it's going to be real soft. Like almost not even making a dent soft. So you can kind of use that to kind of temper your brush strokes and either make it go a little bit harder or go a little bit softer than what you were thinking, better than what you had before maybe. Okay. This right here, adjust last. It's new to ZBrush 2022. I haven't played with it too much, but what it's supposed to do, it's a history adjustment slider. So if you did, let's say, I think this will be how it works. Let's do. So if I do that stroke and I do adjust last and I bring it up, you'll see it'll take that last stroke and intensify it. Or I can bring it down and go the other direction. So if you want to like adjust whatever you're doing, the last stroke you were doing, you can kind of have some controllability over it that way. All right. Hotkey for undo. What do you think it is? Control Z. Good job. See these little tick marks right here? These are all of your actions on the current project. So if I go and hit Control Z, you'll notice that little yellow tick mark moves backwards. So if you ever want to like jump back and forth on your timeline, you can go all the way back to the beginning or go back to where you are right now. Now, as with time travel, as the Avengers have established, when you go back in time, that becomes your new future, right? It's not like Back to the Future rules. So if I go back to here and I start moving, my previous future just disappeared. Okay, so you can't like combine futures into like the best possible version. We're not Doctor Strange. We're just Ant-Man. We can't control time. And if you haven't seen Avengers, I'm really sorry. I'm gonna have to fail you. But it was a good run. Any questions so far? Do you have a question?
About the focal shift and the drop size.
Mm-hmm.
If I create something here, the same thing is on the other side.
You mean like symmetry?
Yeah.
No. You have to turn symmetry on. So symmetry, if you want to turn symmetry on, by default, it's the letter X, which kind of sort of makes sense because like X is like a symmetrical letter. But then you can turn it on that way and turn it off. But that symmetry has nothing to do with focal shift or draw size. It'll mirror it. Yes, ma'am.
Finally got to work.
Yay!
Yes, I just had to get out of it. Now how do I draw on the sphere I made?
You got to make sure you have edit turned on. You got to make sure draw is selected, and you got to make sure make polymesh 3D is clicked. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I looked at the intensity.
So RGB is color, has nothing to do with sculpting. Z intensity is your sculpting stroke. So if I do RGB intensity of 100, and like Z add intensity of like 2, I can technically paint and sculpt at the same time. Don't do it, it gets really confusing, but you can. So I'm painting, but I'm barely sculpting. Or I'm barely painting and I'm super sculpting. Honestly, don't paint and sculpt at the same time. It's like trying to eat a Five Guys hamburger while you're trying to drive. It's just not going to work out. Sculpt first, then paint. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I think it's just a technical thing, but my Z-add and G sub, they're different whenever I use the mouse and then whenever I use my Wacom.
That's probably because the Wacom has pressure sensitivity, your mouse does not.
Well, no, whenever I use Z-add for my mouse, it adds onto the mesh. So whenever I use it on the Wacom, it just doesn't, like it uses the sub. basically.
Are you holding down Alt by chance?
No, I'm not.
Are you holding down like any of these buttons?
I'm trying not to. And one of the buttons is just for rotating.
Well, maybe like something's hotkeyed into like Alt. So like if you hold down Alt, it'll like invert whatever you're doing. Something is maybe there's like a key or something's being held down. Like if you look up to here, does it say like Z add? And it's the pen that's doing what you don't want.
Yeah. Like I'm not holding Alt or anything. And
I don't know. Try a different pen. Maybe it's an issue with the pen. Okay. All right. We have. Okay. About 20 minutes. Let me go ahead and give you guys the assignment, and then I'm gonna just kind of like start constructing something and talking to you guys about how I go about it. I'm not gonna get real far. I do have the videos in the module, so if you guys want to watch those, you can see me go through like the entire process. So that'll be there for you if you want to do that. But I'll get started. So the project for this week, like I said, this is going to be due on next Wednesday. Next Monday, we don't have class because of Martin Luther King Day. So I always thought that was kind of funny. As soon as we come back to class, we immediately have like the following Monday off. Why not just like have us start later? Whatever. I don't know. Anyway, so for this one, you guys are going to be looking at creating your first creature. And so for this one, I'm going to be having you guys do a little bit of research. I want you to look up creatures references from the Precambrian or the Devonian periods. That's about 419, 420 million years ago. That's like a really long time ago. The reason why I picked this is because it's really weird. Like, I don't know if you guys are like watching any like fossil shows or anything, but like there's some weird stuff like back in that period. It just does not look like stuff for today. They look very alien. And I like that because you guys can get like super abstract, and it's good for you to be learning with Zbrush and not trying to like copy something immediately. I just want you guys to like really play with the tools and like try to make something that looks interesting. So for this project, you don't have to make something exactly from fossil record, but I want you to pull references from it. So like in the video, I'm pulling from a fossil of something called a Dunkleostis, which is like a big fish with like a big armored head, but I'm also changing it up to something else. Like I'm changing the facial structure just to make it look more interesting for me. So that's what I want you guys to do. Put a twist on whatever you find. Yeah. So you guys will be turning in the Z tool to me on Wednesday, and we'll take a look at those. And you're also going to turn in class. Class time. Yeah. So you're turning in the Z tool file. You'll be turning in a turntable video. So basically just a little video that has the creature spin. So we can take a look at the whole thing. 3 images of the creature itself from Zbrush. Probably asking how the hell do I do that? There you go. That's how you do that. It's a video. It's really simple. It's like 5 minutes simple. It's very simple. For the videos, make sure you're giving them to me in a actual like video format. Zbrush has like its own video format called ZMV. I can't open it. It's only openable in Zbrush. So I need it, when you export the file, it'll export as like an MP4 or an MPG. So I need something like that. I've got you over time. Part of the reason for asking for this is so when we do our critiques, it can go a little bit quicker so you guys can actually like look at each other's stuff and give yourselves or give your peers good feedback for each of the pieces. Okay. So that's pretty much the project. It's gonna be due next Wednesday, beginning of class. Be ready to go. We'll have our critique and then we'll move on to the next project. Any questions? What? What about the revision? We haven't even turned this in yet. So you can't get a revision for something you haven't turned in yet. That's time travel, and we can't do time travel.
Yeah, we can't. I mean, it was-
Yeah. Nope. All right. So that's that. Any other questions about the project? Okay. All right, I got 20 minutes. See how far I can get. All right, I'm going to start off with a sphere. I'll walk through some of the different brushes and stuff that I use. So let's go ahead and make this a Polymesh 3D. So I'm just getting started, kind of working. I want to focus the camera on my object. So I'm hitting F to focus. Can also hit, there's a focus somewhere on here. Frame, there we go, right there. Frame, fit mesh to view. You'll notice that this guy right here, you click him and drag him, you can rotate him around. This is kind of like your orientation for the Z world, essentially. If the face is facing you, you are looking down the Z axis, okay? Remember in a 3D world, we have X, Y, and Z. So X is like left and right. Y is up and down, and Z is forward and back. All right, you guys remember that? Yeah, okay. So the way that I sculpt all of my characters is I always go with the Z axis facing the camera. So everything's all nice and oriented and ready to go inside of Maya if I choose to bring the character in there. So easy way to do that is have this character facing you. That's not facing you. That's facing off to the right. So you just need to make sure he's facing you correctly. It can be kind of hard to orientate yourself with a sphere because it's like it all looks the same. All right. If I hit X, you'll see that we have 2 little cursors appearing on the surface right there. And if I sculpt, you'll see I have symmetry turned on. If you want to mess with symmetry, you can go to transform right up here and then activate symmetry. Same exact thing. X turns it on and off. Activate symmetry is right there. If you need to change the axis of symmetry, you can. So if you want to change it to Y, you can change it. And you can also change it to Z. You can also combine. So X, Y, and Z. So you got that. You also have a radial symmetry right here, which will let you radially sculpt. which is kind of cool, actually. But for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to leave it on X. So otherwise, this might get confusing, right? All right. Right here is my subtools. Think of this as like your individual objects inside of ZBrush. So you can have object made up of, you can have a mesh made up of multiple objects. You can also think of as layers if you want, if that helps you. Like in Photoshop, you can have like multiple layers of multiple paint or pictures or images or whatever. That's kind of what subtools are. Okay. Over here is the brushes you can use. It's a lot of brushes. Let's simplify this. I usually will use, if I go to C, I will usually spend time on the clay buildup and clay tubes. And I'll also spend time with the move. There's actually 3 different moves here, but this move brush is pretty good to work with. Move topological is pretty good too. They're both the same brush. They just work slightly differently. So move is good. I'll show you that one. You can literally just move an object. So let's say I'm going to move this character over to the side. I held down Shift. I can actually snap a view from one side to another. So let's go and grab, make a fish. I'm just kind of dragging and shaping. You'll notice that's kind of looking bad, right? We all agree like that doesn't look very good. I can hold down Shift. You'll see it turns blue. That allows me to smooth. But you also will see like the faces on the mesh are getting stretched out. Okay. So that's something I'm going to have to deal with. When you're sculpting in general, you want to try to keep the faces relatively the same size. You want to keep that topology basically equal. And so one way we can do that is if we scroll down, I'm going to close Subtool. Right below it is Geometry. Okay. We go down here, we have this thing called Dynamesh. I'm going to go down here and click on Polyframe so you can see the edge loops and the faces and vertices. So Dynamesh will actively remesh your object and make sure everything has evenly spaced polygons. Okay. There we go. It's pretty evenly spaced. Now, if you notice, it went from this, which right here says active points are about 8,000. And then it went up to 88,000. So it went from 8,000 faces to 88,000 faces. Means my resolution went up. So what do you think that means for sculpting? Say what? It'll lag my computer? No. I mean, eventually.
I mean,
Not at 88,000 faces, though. If it lags your computer at 88,000 faces, you need your computer. Now, if I put this into Maya, yeah, you might, it's going to be hot. That's going to be hot. ZBrush actually has a really interesting way of getting around this problem. It essentially takes your 3D object whenever you stop moving it and turns it into a 2D image. It's weird, but it's kind of cool. That's how it deals with having all these faces. So it's kind of neat. So I'm just going to kind of start making like a little fish or eel or I don't know, something. I think I want to make a little hole for the mouth. There's multiple ways to do this. I'm just going to show you one right now. We have masking. So with masking, I can paint a mask on the mesh like that. I can also remove a mask by holding down Control and swiping, and it lets go of the mesh or lets go of the mask. And I can also invert the mask by just clicking and holding down Control. See that? Now, what would you expect a mask to do? It's probably going to protect the sculpt so that if I'm pulling on it, it's not going to pull whatever's masked out. So that's pretty useful. Here's how I use it to make a mouth. So I'm going to mask out an area right here. I'm going to invert it. And we're still with that move brush. I'm just going to pull this in. Let's smooth this a little bit. So I'm kind of separating out the top and the lower jaw. This is going to be the back of the throat, or back of the mouth, I should say. Do that again. So you see how bad that topology is getting inside the mouth? Right there. So let's go and release that mask. I think I need to run Dynamesh again. So Dynamesh is already turned on. I'm going to hold down Control and then do a little swipe off the mesh. And you'll see it retessellates the whole mesh. You see that? What's the advantage of this? Suddenly, I have a whole bunch more faces where I didn't have them before. So I can go in and keep sculpting the inside of that mouth. Any questions so far? No? You good?
What was the button for Zoom again?
Shift. Okay. All right, it's 10:44. So we need to put up our tablets and box them back up, make sure all they're nice and neat. Go ahead and get your pens, put them back in the box up here next to Carlos. And then we're good to go. Carlos, right? Okay, good. I was thinking Carlos or Corey. I was like, I'm pretty sure it was Carlos. All right. So we will reconvene next Wednesday, 8 a.m. Let's take a look at your Devonian prehistoric fishes. And yeah, then we'll move on to the next project, okay?
If there's anything that kind of like going over our heads during this, maybe have a YouTube video that you.
So I go through the entire process of the fish on those videos that are in the module. So like I'm walking through all of that. So hopefully, I mean, you should be able to follow along with that. I've actually was recording this whole thing, so I'll post that up on probably I'll put it in this module. So it can be in there as well. And then if there's still something you're not sure about, like shoot me a message, shoot me an email, and I can respond to you. Okay.
Yeah, I got a little lost in the start expanding the circle. Okay, where's
Yeah, I know. It gets tough real quick.
That's not long.
Yes, ma'am.
You guys should have car access, so you should be able to get in. So if you can get in, we don't have a flash, I don't have an issue with it here. If we do have a flash, it comes in. A lot of our classes are not, like, we're not running in the like full capacity of what it's before. So there's probably a few seats open. We always have the professor.
Yeah, I know, I knew one. Remember the last one? You can't- Draw with your computer. Yeah.
Oh, you just press. Yeah, you click on it.